Welcome everyone to the final clinical research connections of the summer. Thank you very much for joining this iteration of Clinical Research Connections. After this session of Clinical Research Connections, we will actually be rethinking the series. So we would love to hear your opinions on how you connect with Clinical Research Connections or elsewhere on campus, how you get announcements. And so rather than our usual polls about the characteristics of our attendees today, I will actually go ahead and share a poll question with you in the chat to get your feedback on how you would like to see Clinical Research Connections delivered to you in the future. And while everybody is answering that poll question in the chat, I will go ahead and introduce our speakers today. Today we will be hearing from Sarah Millian-Perez from the CRAO regarding Evara eReg. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you very much. We will also be hearing from Sam Ellis, PharmD, Associate Professor and Director of the CU Research Pharmacy on a drug transport across campus. And then finally, we will be hearing from Jenny Cathcart, MPH, the CTRC Scheduling Manager on Clinical Translational Research Centers, the CTRCs, resources for researchers. And so, as we are 3 minutes in, and I'll go ahead and paste that poll question into the chat one more time in case any of our new arrivals did not get it the first time. But I will go ahead and hand it off to our first speaker. Sarah, please take it away.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm gonna share my screen if that's okay. All right. Can you all see the slides okay, or is it still in the presenter view?
It's in just slide view.
Okay, hang on 1 second, sorry. All right, how about now? Is that the normal slides?
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. So sorry about that. My name is Sarah Millian-Perez. I am with CRAO, and I am just going to quickly talk to everybody today about Evara eReg, which is an e-regulatory management system that we have housed in CRAO. So what is eReg? It is a Part 11 compliant electronic regulatory binder maintenance system through Evara. You might be familiar with Evara because it also houses Encore. And in general, I would say that it's just a more efficient way to manage any required regulatory binders. So there are a lot of benefits to using eReg. You have electronic signatures for protocol documents, delegation of authority, and other things that require signature. It also allows for secure remote access to sponsors, both internally and any external monitors that you can set up through review sessions through eReg. Additionally, you can share staff credentials and share documents across multiple protocols that are in the system. You can manage your effective, invalid, and till dates on documents within the system. There's also integration with Encore. So if you have a protocol that has been built in Encore, you can actually bring that on over into the eReg system since they're both housed through Evara. Similarly with contact information, if you have contact information in Encore, that can be brought over into eReg. And lastly, this also can be used for multi-site studies. So if you have a multi-site study, it's also a great way to manage all of that documentation. If you would like to gain access to eReg, if you're interested in it, we have an access eReg request form that's on our website. It's through REDCap. what will happen when you fill out that red cap, it's user specific. So you'll say if you want a PI role or a regulatory manager role, and then we will email you back with a Zendesk ticket to get your required training started, because everybody who has access to eReg has to go through our required training, which is through Advara University. Most of these trainings are pretty straightforward and simple. Once you've completed that training, we'll allow you access to eReg. An important note, though, is that no children's study teams are allowed to use eReg at this time. It's still something that leadership is considering. Potentially in the future, it might be an option. And then things also look slightly different for protocol access. We have a separate red cap. So you'll request for individuals, a part of your study team, if you're interested in using eReg, and then for individual protocols, you can also find that red cap on our website. An important thing to note as well is that unfortunately, this is not free. So any industry initiated or funded trials have a one-time $1,000 fee. That's good for the duration of your study, so you just have to pay it up front. If you have an investigator initiated or federally funded study, you do not have to pay for the use of eReg. The university is paying for that on our end. And I just wanted to open it up to any questions. Just wanted to have a quick, introduction to eReg, but if anybody has any questions, please let me know and I'm happy to answer.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you know, and I'm not sure if this is easily accessible information, but do you know how many departments or groups are using eReg right now?
I don't have an exact number. The Cancer Center has really been pioneering the use of eReg, and eReg is really common across other cancer centers, like across the nation. But yeah, mainly the Cancer Center. We do have a few other folks that are in there. Yeah. Okay, do you see a question in the chat? If you are getting a signature from someone, would that person have to complete system training? So yes, anybody that's in the eReg system needs to do the training to access the system, but you can have people who haven't done the training who are listed as staff in your protocol. They just wouldn't be able to sign a document in eReg, for example. Okay, well,
Oh, I see one more question in the chat. How can we
yes.
find out with other institutions, external sites, which other institutions or external sites have access to eReg?
That's a great question. There is a working eReg group that Advara has. So that's a great way if you're interested. I know some cancer center folks also, I go to that meeting, but they also go to that meeting. And I would really recommend it if you're interested in also talking to folks about how they're using eReg at their institution. Because it's a fairly new platform, so they're still making a lot of changes and people are still working out how to use it. So if you're interested, please feel free to email me, and I can get you set up with like being able to go to those meetings. Yes. So I'm fully remote. I won't be able to visit in person, but yeah, I'm totally happy to set up future meetings over Zoom to go over eReg and walk everyone through the system and what it looks like. Because I'm super pro eReg. There's a bit of a learning curve getting used to the system, but once you're in there, it's super great and it really eliminates the need for a paper binder, which is awesome.
And Christy, this is Kat. I can come in person and we can Zoom Sarah in, and that way you have kind of both of us.
Yes.
So totally send us a message, Christy, and we'll schedule that whenever you want.
Yes. What Stacy said is super true. People who are document signers, so really only in the system to sign things, the training is just like 5 minutes total. So really the more of the headache is like filling out the red cap and all of that emailing than the actual training. So it's also super great for like CRCs or anybody who's helping the study to get them into the system as well.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you coming to talk about this. And it's great to know that there are resources available to learn the system.
Yes.
All right. So thank you very much. And we will go ahead and pass it along to our next speaker, Sam Ellis, who will be talking about drug transport across campus.
Perfect. Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it. That was like perfect timing because I was having a hard time getting into Zoom for whatever reason was going on. And so I lucked out and got in just in time. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to come talk about drug transportation across campus. And so this is a topic that's come up in multiple discussions with different sponsors or research teams, environmental health and services, and other people across campus. So I think it's good timing for us to have a brief overview of kind of how we in the pharmacy define hazardous drugs. And also we're transporting not just hazardous drugs, but non-hazardous drugs, narcotics, and other medications or investigational products that require temperature controls. A few other comments or discussion items that have come up recently are things about like study teams reaching out for us to ship investigational product to a subject's home, or more importantly too is the accountability of investigational product that's returned to campus. So not only the transport of that product back to the pharmacy, but also I wanted to spend just a little bit of time talking about the handling of those products by research study teams during the accountability process. Just to give you an overview of the amount of product that's being dispensed out of the pharmacy, but also being returned. So we're receiving right now about 60 shipments a month, about 500 investigational products per month come into the pharmacy. We're dispensing out about 260 products a month. Many of those are injectables. And then we're also getting study teams returning product back to the pharmacy every month. So there's quite a bit of transport of investigational product across the campus here. And again, I wanted to make sure we feel comfortable in how we're educating our study teams and investigators and coordinators, research associates of how we should be transporting and returning product, how we should be doing the accountability. From the pharmacy perspective, I'm not sure everybody is aware of the NIOSH list, or maybe you've heard about it, but don't really understand that much about it. So in the pharmacy world, we tend to use the NIOSH list quite a bit for determining.
I'm so sorry.
Oh yeah.
I'm so sorry to stop you. Are you changing your slides?
I am. Sorry.
It looks like we're only seeing your title slide.
I apologize for that. I have two screens up, and I think one was not that. So, okay. So I went through workload. Can you see those now?
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
My apologies. So here's kind of the workload in the pharmacy, the amount of drug that's coming in and out of the pharmacy and then back to the pharmacy during the return process. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time with the NIOSH list and make sure you're aware of what that list is and how it's developed and how we use it in the pharmacy and how we should think about continuing to work with the study teams to make sure they're aware of if their product might be hazardous or not. Keep in mind, though, that most of our investigational research product, we aren't aware if it's truly hazardous. They're not FDA approved. They're under an IND, and so therefore they don't have that determination yet from the FDA. Many times there's not unique handling instructions from a hazardous standpoint in the study protocols or pharmacy manuals or even in the IB for that matter. So a lot of what we do here in the pharmacy is do some risk assessment of investigational products just to determine if it's hazardous and if we have to implement any of our policies here in the pharmacy. The NIOSH list is a group of individuals and experts from the CDC that really look at individual drugs and package inserts and other preclinical and clinical data to determine if a product is hazardous. And so it's divided into three groups of how they categorize. There's about 300 drugs on a combination of table 1 through table 3. Table 1, I think, historically is what we thought about as anti-neoplastic drugs, but they really have been modified over the years to be drugs that are determined to be carcinogenic or probably carcinogenic, not just anti-neoplastics. And then table 2 are drugs that meet one or more of the definitions for hazardous medications from NIOSH. And then table 3 are those that pose a reproductive or developmental hazard. So our goal in using this in the pharmacy is just to really protect our employees and the people that are handling product regularly to implement certain PPE standards or control standards of where we prepare a medication. For those of you that don't know, we have dedicated rooms for hazardous drugs and non-hazardous drugs and sterile and non-sterile drugs. And so we determine if, when product comes to us, if we have to repackage it or if it returns to us and we have to do accountability counts for this, then that information helps us determine which room to use for handling that product. So I wanted to make you aware of EH&S's pharmaceutical materials, and they kind of combine both hazardous and non-hazardous to be a guidance document that really does get at how do we protect the research team members that are transporting product across campus. They really break this down into 3 areas: those that are acceptable containers, acceptable transport routes, and IP transporting in a vehicle. And so the acceptable containers are very similar to some of the guidance documents that we have in pharmacy, that they should be hard-sided materials that are easily for disinfecting and cleaning. They're securely closed to contain any leaks or spills. If there was damage to a vial or an IV bag or a syringe, that liquid is contained, and that the contents within that container are protected from moving around quite a bit. So I tend to use bubble wrap or even small cardboard boxes to help protect product within the larger boxes. This picture just is an example of a product that we have here in the pharmacy that has a rubber gasket sealed box or enclosure for transporting product. EH&S goes on in their guidance document to talk about acceptable transport routes, and so trying to use stairwells or freight elevators. And obviously for anything that's hazardous or non-hazardous in this case, using freight elevators instead of patient elevators is highly recommended. And then if you're transporting in a vehicle, we do have a couple of people that will pick product up here and take it to various sites on the AMC campus. If it's a personal vehicle, just realize it has to be personal insurance for that, for any accidents. But most importantly, the product has to be contained in a way that if the individual was in an accident and there was breakage, that investigational products contained in that container.
I
Yeah.
don't think the slides are advancing
Oh
anymore.
my goodness.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that is okay. So I was on this slide right here. I'll advance the right one. I think I'm advancing the wrong one, and the one that's being displayed is the other one. So my apologies again. So this is a picture of a storage container that we use here in the pharmacy for transporting vaccines or other storage containers, or transporting other investigational products across campus. And so this is the EH&S pharmaceutical material transport guidance document. And these are the sub-bits of that document. So again, I think what we see in the pharmacy is sometimes people are throwing it in a little lunch container. Maybe there's an ice pack, maybe there's not. So I want to make sure that we're really working with the study teams better to help with documenting and following procedures and documenting those procedures. This next slide then looks at transportation of controlled substances on the AMC campus. Again, the containers are exactly the same as the previous slide for those for pharmaceutical containment. Acceptable transport routes, again, same information for controlled substances as it was for pharmaceutical substances. But transportation in vehicles is not permitted for controlled substances on campus. So that needs to be walked and not driven over in a personal vehicle. As far as our internal policies for transportation, so if we're transporting product around campus, all liquid IPs need to be in an outer plastic bag. If it's hazardous, we double bag everything. If it's hazardous, it still needs to go into a container, and our recommendation for containers are very similar to what was in the EH&S guidance document, being hard material, one that's easily disinfected and cleanable. So I think that's different than some of the products we're seeing come into the pharmacy that are more like, again, a lunch bag where it's, cloth or maybe a material zipped bag where you'd still get leakage out of that potentially through the zipper area. and they tend to be a little bit more difficult to truly disinfect and to clean. The other issue that isn't in EH&S, but I think it's important, is we get questions a fair amount from the sponsors about keeping it cold. So if there's a cold chain, how do we keep it cold? How do we document those temperature, within range or excursions that might happen during transport? So if there are ice packs that are required, we want to make sure the IP is separated from those ice packs. So we're not laying a syringe, for example, or a vial right on the ice packs. That we tend to use bubble wrap or even a small cardboard carrying box within that concealed container. And then if it's a reusable plastic cooler like we use, they need to be decontaminated and cleaned after each use. Same thing with the ice packs. If there's ice packs that are being used, we need to make sure and decontaminate those again with alcohol and clean appropriately. The next piece of that, oops, sure that all moves forward. So if it's temperature controlled investigational product, we encourage the study teams to work with the sponsors for transportation, because it's the study teams that are picking up product from the pharmacy and then transporting that back to their clinics. And every study is a little bit different and every sponsor is a little bit different. So making sure that you have worked with the sponsors to develop study-specific SOP is appropriate. But I think in general, you can develop your own basic SOP on transportation that would apply to your study team. But obviously there might be subtle differences with each study. So that's why I encourage you to have a study-specific transportation SOP as well. At a minimum, then containers should be able to maintain controlled temperatures. So we have a refrigerated product that is going to be administered, out of refrigeration for 30 minutes. It's fine bringing a room temperature carrying container for that. But if it needs to maintain a cold chain because it's going to go home with the patient or the subject in a cold manner, then we need to make sure to maintain that cold chain throughout. And if the sponsor is requiring you to do any temperature monitoring during transportation, then we actually have some Bluetooth devices we'd be happy to lend out for on-campus transportation, but not for home transportation. I don't want those going to the patient if you're wanting to ship that to the patient. But definitely for on-campus transportation, then we can assist you with that. And then this question does come up about shipping to subjects' residence. Historically, we've stayed out of this in the research pharmacy because you can imagine with 160 studies, you might have 160 different sponsors wanting to ship 160 different ways. It's probably an exaggeration on my part, but you get the gist. It makes it very complex. And so we've left shipping for the most part up to the study teams, unless it's something that's designed as part of the study pharmacy manual or the protocol for pharmacy to be involved with shipping that. And we've done that for several studies, and we typically work or coordinate with different courier services, such as World Courier, that really specialize in transporting investigational product to subjects' homes. Where we get questions in these one-offs is, hey, the patient can't make it in today, they're going to miss an appointment. Can we ship study drug to them? And my recommendation to you would be make sure you have that in writing from the sponsor that it's okay to ship and how they would like it shipped. It can't be kind of a one-off decision, hey, we're going to just ship this today, because it does end up potentially going against protocol or procedures for the study. So I want to make sure that when you guys are starting studies up front, if that's a potential concern or issue, make sure that gets addressed with the sponsor front. All right, and then accountability of returned investigational product. So knowing that many of our investigational products, it's unknown if they're hazardous or not. I think it's important. And just because the protocol doesn't say the word hazardous doesn't mean that we shouldn't be taking precautions. And so I think it's very important for teams to develop some internal policy around how they're going to count tablets or capsules or use syringes or use vials as part of the study return process. And so I highly recommend, use gloves, use a mask. If you're going to be counting and pouring out capsules or bottles or tablets or capsules out of a bottle, then have a surface that's dedicated for that counting. So ideally not in your hands or on the counter where residue can reside, but really getting a counting tray, like just like you'd see in a pharmacy, that can be easily decontaminated and cleaned in between each of the uses for that dedicated tray. So it's a way that I would protect my own employees here in the pharmacy, and I want to make sure our research teams are doing the same thing in their setting. So really, those are the main points. And just to highlight those again, right, I really want study teams to work on developing a general transport SOP for how they're going to transport product across campus, and using the guidance documents from both EH&S and the research pharmacy to develop those internal SOPs, I think would be a good place to start. Sponsors, I want to make sure that they're aware of transport of study investigational product across campus. Every sponsor is a little bit different. I have had sponsors say, well, if it's less than 5 minutes, it's fine. Or if it's less than 10 minutes, it's fine. So sometimes that time of transportation is very subjective amongst the different sponsors. And if they want to maintain cold temperature chain or cold chain, that making sure we clearly understand what that entails from the sponsor prior to the study starting. Same thing with shipping of any IP to the subject's house. It can't be just a, hey, we need to get this done today kind of issue. If there is that scenario that comes up, making sure the sponsor's on board and having a very clear approved process for that is helpful for the sponsor and for the study teams. And then I would just encourage all the study teams to have a very clear plan of how they're going to handle investigational product, how they're going to do their counts and returns, and then thinking about how they're going to be transporting that investigational product back to the pharmacy as well. So that is concluding my part of this. Is there any questions from the group? Sorry, I'm just now seeing chat and some of your slides are stuck comments. Hopefully I finally worked that out and everybody was able to see the slides.
Absolutely. I have a quick question. So thank you for the kind of breakdown of these final summary items in this slide. Is this where you often see the most common pitfalls, or is this kind of the most common things that you have to re-communicate to study teams, especially newer study teams, to this process?
Yeah, definitely. I think, probably the biggest areas. So we have some non-clinical research that goes on too. So a lot of our narcotics go out to different animal researchers and other groups. And so I've definitely had to work with that kind of population quite a bit of how they are going to transport narcotics. If we kind of did risk assessment on every investigational product, because we can't truly evaluate the risk in many of our products, some institutions would say they all have to be handled as hazardous because we can't assess the risk. They're not on the NIOSH list. And if it's a first in drug class, for example, it automatically would tip some institutions into saying it's hazardous no matter what. We tend to look a little bit further and look at chemical compounds and structures and adverse effect profiles from the investigator brochure to make a little bit better determination of that. But yeah, I think from my standpoint and what I see is definitely people, taking cold products not in appropriate container to maintain cold chain. I definitely see product coming back to us that's been dumped out in plastic bags and, taken out of their original packaging or bottling, which is concern. Occasionally I'll get a used syringe, which most of the time that isn't the case, but occasionally we will back on returns, and use vials that might just be not bagged. And so things with liquids, I want to make sure end up in plastic bags as they come back, but also we should be doing that to protect our staff and the research teams that are picking product up from us to make sure that that's going out appropriately to the study teams. And so I think it's really kind of just re-educating the groups about the importance of how we look at drug, how we handle drug, and how we transport drug.
Thank you very much. This is really helpful, and thank you for for kind of going over some of those common pitfalls that folks should watch out for as well. Allison, thank you as well for sharing the link to the NIOSH list. It looks like this is the list from 2020 and is still shown as draft online. But
Yeah, it's still listed as draft. It's used across the industry, but it still shows up as draft. There, I think between 2016 and 2020, there were like 34 drugs added to that list. It's a really good drug, and so thanks, Allison, for posting that. If people could look at that, I think you'd be surprised. I think, you know, when you work, if you're a nurse and you work in different institutions, they kind of modify and create their own hazard lists. But if you look at this in table 2, there's a lot of really commonly used drugs, right? Like estrogen, some of our antiviral medications, some of our seizure medications all show up in category 2 or table 2 in the NIOSH list. And I think it's just important for us to look at those and take appropriate precautions. Again, in their package inserts, they might not say that it's hazardous in, you know, big bold letters, but we know from the reproductive data that's out there or other sources of data, not always from the sponsor or the manufacturer, that expert committees have really put these medications into these tables with a real clear purpose and good data.
excellent. Thank you for that context and for the presentation. If anybody has any additional questions for Sarah or for Dr. Ellis, feel free to share them in the chat as well. So I will go ahead now and hand over to our final presenter, Jenny Cathcart, who is the CTRC scheduling manager, to talk about Clinical Translational Research Centers, CTRCs, resources for researchers.
Hi, well, thanks for having me. I'm Jenny. I am the scheduling manager for the CTRC here on campus. And one of our goals for this year is to just kind of make sure that people are aware of some of the resources that we have and the services that we offer. So I am just going to give a quick overview of some of the things that we offer through the CTRC. And I'm happy to take any questions as well. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. All right, is that in presentation mode, hopefully?
It is in presenter notes mode.
Oh, let's see. I wonder, sorry. Let's see here. Let me try this. All right, how's that?
Perfect, thank you.
Perfect, okay. So the CTRC offers an array of different resources, but we are focused on trying to meet all of the needs of the investigators on campus. We conduct a lot of different mechanistic studies. We use healthy controls. We also do treatment trials. And we truly believe we're one of the best places on campus for you to conduct your clinical research. We offer services in both adult and pediatric CTRCs. We have research nursing. We offer different lab services with a very large, wide range of analytical testing. We have nutrition services. We offer imaging such as echoes. We do exercise and body composition testing through DEXA scans and VO2 max testing. We also don't charge any fees for investigator-initiated studies to use rooms. We have a large infusion center over in our clinic. We have negative pressure rooms. And then on our inpatient unit, we also have sleep study rooms as well as a metabolic chamber for different types of research studies to occur. So I'm just going to share a brief video with you guys, and this kind of highlights some of the big stuff that we offer through the CTRC. And let me see if this will work. we go.
Clinical translational research centers are part of the larger Colorado Clinical Translational Science Institute. It's the on-the-ground practical implementation of research.
The facility has been amazing for our research. We have people come in, they check in at the front desk just like you would for a medical clinic, but all of the visits are related to research. It's easy to get to, easy to park, easy to find the building. For us as researchers, this building's actually connected via a walkway to my office, so I don't even have to go outside to come over here in the winter.
That's one of the neatest parts of this campus, the Anschutz campus, is that we have everything in one place here. We provide clinical care, so our patients are coming in to get their medical care. We can do research activities, collect samples, process them, and we even have the research labs on campus.
We can do blood draws through nursing support here. We have an infusion room where participants can get medications like they might in a clinic setting of antibiotics or other treatments that are being tested as part of therapies.
We have a dedicated pediatric CTRC clinic over at Children's. It's actually integrated into our outpatient clinics, which is very convenient for our families that come in.
We have a DEXA scan or a type of x-ray that looks at body composition. There's other resources such as a FibroScan or echocardiograms that look at liver function and cardiac function. I focus on exercise research primarily, and with having the gym here, the availability of the exercise tolerance testing, the DEXA scan, the blood draws, ability to give medications through our research pharmacy, it's really a one-stop shop for our research needs. Another great resource, the specialized research nursing. And so the nurses not only have a nursing background, but are also very familiar with running clinical trials.
They collect the samples, they process the samples for us, they help us with data entry, and they work really closely in coordination with our clinical research coordinators who work on our studies. It really is a seamless process that makes it easy on us as the research team.
The CTRC is a great fit for my research. It just really facilitates a smooth research visit. I think our participants love it. They walk in, they see a cool new building, nice resources. It's just fun to be a part of, and they really are excited to participate in research as well.
The CTRC really is an integral part of the work we do. They take your research project that you've come up with, you've written proposals for, you've gotten grants for, you've put on paper, and they make it a reality.
So that's just kind of a quick overview of what we offer at the CTRC. And I'm not sure if everybody is aware of it, so we're just hoping to kind of give everybody a little information on what we offer and hopefully help out more people with their research on campus. And I'm happy to answer any questions or direct anyone to the right person if I can't.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I have a quick question. What is something that, are there any things that the CTRC offers that you think that a lot of people don't know about, or that is the common aha moment? Like, wow, the CTRC can do that?
Yeah, I mean, we actually do such a wide variety of different studies on campus. I think a lot of the cardio testing that we do that we may not necessarily have as well advertised. We have a full gym over here. We're able to test using different types of bike or treadmill equipment. We also have 2 sonographers now that are able to do echoes, fiber scans, vascular testing, and then a whole nutrition core that can prepare entire meals for your participants if you want to look at certain diet composition. So I think it's a very comprehensive variety of different services that we offer. And we just hope that, you know, if people are interested in trying to get their research off the ground and running, they consider using us because we are a great spot to start and help you get launched.
Excellent. Thank you. And then also, would you say that the CTRC does more industry sponsored research or more investigator initiated or federally funded research?
We do quite a bit of both. We have a lot of investigator initiated because there are also opportunities to receive additional funding through microgrants through the CTRC. So if you are interested in something like that, you can go on our website and learn more about how we can help fund your research as well as help you conduct it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right. If there are any other questions, please feel free to unmute for Jenny or any of our other presenters today. But I'm not seeing anything else in the chat. So I will go ahead and wrap up and give you all a little bit of time back in your day. I do have a couple of announcements from the OVCR. There is a quarterly recruitment workshop covering inclusive recruitment practices for LGBTQ+ communities. That'll be tomorrow from 12 to 1. There is also an end of summer social, workforce development social that will be held at on Thursday at Milieu Brewing from 4 to 6. That is where Ursula Brewing was, if you know, kind of near Lost Coffee here on the campus. There will be snacks provided, so hope to see you there. And the CU Anschutz block party is going to be September 18th from 11 to 2 out at Bonneville Circle. So we'll hope to see you there as well. Are there any announcements from other folks attending the meeting? I'll just open it up to the group to share if there is anything that you'd like to get out to our attendees here today. All right, so we'll move on from that. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to be revamping and rethinking clinical research connections for future iterations. So this will be the last one this summer. We would love to hear your feedback on that. So if you didn't get a chance to answer the poll about how you get and receive information on campus and your ideas for future iterations of clinical research connections, please go ahead and click the link in the chat, and we would love to hear from you. We will be announcing the new iteration of clinical research connections via the cross education training and resources page, which you can find here. I will go ahead and share that link, and that is part of the Clinical Research Operations and Services Web Hub. So that link is also in the chat. As a reminder, recordings of this and future sessions will be posted on the CROSS website, which is that second link in the chat there. And we will have the recording posted for this session by the end of the week. If you do have ideas for future iterations or ideas for clinical research connections, please feel free to share them via the poll question in the chat or by emailing researchstudies@cuanschutz.edu. And with that, I will go ahead and bid you all an excellent late summer day and hope that you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Thanks so much for joining.